What you are about to hear is going to be 75% serious talk. 20% will be two old guys going down a rabbit hole and telling stories about football and rodeo and being at least 5% funny. Please be aware that we may not be grammatically correct or even sound like we know what we are talking about, but we are trying our best to learn and cope with the cards that have been dealt to us. We believe that we can bring hope to those who suffer and help in any way that we can. This is the HeadRush Podcast with Paul Fraze and Corey Berry.
Welcome to the HeadRush Podcast, where we talk about everything related to brain trauma. And more specifically, we talk about traumatic brain injury, TBI. We talk about chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE. TES is traumatic encephalopathy syndrome. And we talk about RHI, repetitive head impacts. Our mantra is how to cope and find hope. My name is Paul Fraze, and I played organized football for 20 years and the last 11 years professionally. And this is Corey Berry, the co-host of the HeadRush Podcast. Corey, tell us a little bit about your athletic background.
So, I grew up playing sports like most kids in our generation. And I played football, wrestled, rodeoed. And then I finished out 9 years riding professional rodeo in several organizations. And from that,
What I remember, we've been talking for the past couple months, and I know you said you slipped in some car racing somewhere in there as well. And you said you actually had a traumatic experience in a car.
Oh, yeah. I raced open wheel modifieds. And doing 100 miles an hour on the 3/8 dirt track with 24 other people.
So like sliding all the way through it?
Oh, yeah. It was bad to the bone.
All right.
Until you hit a wall about 90 miles an hour.
Oh, all right. We'll talk about that further, I'm sure. So Corey and I actually met last year in a support group for those dealing with suspected CTE. And we really knew that there was not enough awareness out there from CTE. And there's a lot of people, you watch a movie called Quiet Explosions, and they say that there's 2 million TBIs, traumatic brain injuries, every single year just in America. So it is a problem. It's an invisible problem.
But CTE is not a TBI.
Right. I mean, yeah, there's total difference.
Right.
Absolutely. But we decided to get together and spread awareness and share hope.
Right.
So what is the HeadRush Podcast all about? And I promise this is the only episode that we're going to be long-winded about what we do. But what is the HeadRush Podcast all about? We will unravel the mysteries that surround traumatic brain injuries and chronic traumatic encephalopathy regarding mental health, depression, addiction, suicide ideologies, lack of executive function, memory loss, and degenerative neurological issues. These symptoms can be found if you go look at Mayo Clinic and symptoms of CTE, or Boston University symptoms of CTE. You've got about 18 different variations and issues concerning TBIs, or repetitive head impacts. These are two of the most recognized and probably, arguably, two of the top 10 in the world for traumatic brain injury research. And I know you've been to a couple more institutions where you know that they're some of the best in the world as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I started out in 1999 going to UCSF, University of California, San Francisco. But before we dive into this a little bit more, this is a serious topic, people. And it's not fancy, it's not sexy. But you know what? Let's have fun. And, but to get real on the first episode and really get down, this has destroyed families. It's ruined lives. Patrick Risha died to suicide at stopcte.org. Patrick Risha, CTE Awareness Foundation, who sponsors us, lost her son.
And it was found that he was suffering from CTE.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, it's a serious topic, but let's have fun with it, but also get to the down and dirty of it.
I think
so. Paul, the long story short, and we could spend all day sharing and talking football stories and all of that, but I want to know, and I'm sure the viewers want to know, when did you start feeling the effects of CTE or suspect that you may have CTE?
I know exactly when. It was at 47 years old. It was like somebody took a light switch and turned it off in my brain chemistry, and it was I went apathetic from being passionate and emotional. I went to apathy. I was in depression. I knew just enough to be dangerous. I knew about neurotransmitters, dopamine and serotonin and GABA, and I felt like everything just flatlined. And there's a lot more that I'll share about it. The last thing that we are going to do as the HeadRush podcast, these topics will be discussed amongst professional athletes. We're going to have professional athletes on that are at risk for CTE. We're going to be talking to doctors. We're going to be talking to caregivers, family members, and loved ones, and we'll talk about the implications, the struggles, and most of all, we will talk about hope. And that's kind of where you're saying we're going to be lighthearted about this because we know there's hope, and we believe there's therapies, that we believe there's things that we can do.
Clinical trials. There's a lot out there. My journey didn't start in 99. I did get diagnosed with cognitive nerve damage in 1999 due to concussions. But me and my wife, we decided we wanted to watch that movie with Will Smith.
Concussion.
Right. And my wife kind of looked at me and went, "Wow, that's you." And I've had medical bouts since 99, and I've been to Baylor Medical Center. I've been to San Francisco. I've been to some of the best. I've had so many tests done, sleep-deprived tests, EEGs, CAT scans, MRIs. But I didn't know until that movie, and we kind of looked at each other, and it was like, wow. But still, I didn't recognize it in me.
I didn't want to watch that movie, and I didn't. And my wife at the time watched it on a plane trip back from California, and she bawled her eyes out. And I guarantee she was saying, "That's Paul." So it's an eye-opening experience, but it's one that, when you go down that path of discovery, you want to find hope. And I know so back to my kind of journey, 47, things changed. I was raging. I was apathetic, depressed, but the thing that scared me was the raging, and I was out of control. I used to get angry once in a while, and I could bring it back in. But at that time, I started getting angry, and I didn't want to reel it back in. I didn't care. You were going to listen to me. And it's sad to say. I'm glad to say that I was never modeled that domestic violence was okay, because if I had that rage and I had been modeled that that's just status quo, I probably would have I would have victimized people with it. but I didn't. But that rage was still scaring me. I was yelling like a jugular veins and spittle coming out of my face, yelling at my beautiful 13-year-old daughter. About 6 months after that occurrence, Chris Nowinski, who is a friend of mine, he had founded the Concussion Legacy Foundation, and he actually gave me a call, and he said, "Paul, hey, we're studying biomarkers for CTE. We're trying to find, we're doing what is the lumbar, the spinal tap?
Spinal tap.
Yeah. We're going to find out if there's tau protein in the base of the spine, or if it's, migrated all up to the head, the head, the brain, so on and so forth. But we're going to test. You want to be involved?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm going through some stuff. I don't know what it is. I would love to. When can you do it?" He had me on a plane in 2 weeks. And that started my journey of, exploration and actually understanding what repetitive head impacts can do to a person, whether it's depression, apathy, memory loss, degenerative neurological issues, you name it. So
Because it's not the concussions.
No.
And with me saying that, folks, concussions are bad, and they say what a concuss can last how many years?
The inflammatory cytokines can be detected up to 17 years after the last subconcussive hit.
Right.
Yeah.
Not subconcussion. I'm talking about a true concussion.
Well, and
where you get knocked out. I mean, we've seen the stars, we've tasted the pennies, we've seen the color purple.
And you were saying tasting the pennies is actual spinal fluid. Is that what you're?
That's what I've heard, is that it's actual spinal fluid, that when you taste the copper in your mouth, it's the fluid from a hard hit. But it's the impacts that cause CTE, the repetitive impacts. So tell me, in your football career, what would you say? How many repetitive hits have you taken?
Well, when I was up there for the first time in Boston University doing those clinical trials, they did a whole lot of questioning and neurological testing, and then basic questions about how many concussions have you had. And I thought concussions was loss of consciousness. And I said, I think I've been knocked out 3 or 4 times. Interestingly, when I went back about 3 years later and I read my 500 pages of medical pages from my 11 years playing professionally, I actually read every page, and I came across 2 more concussions that I had forgotten about. I didn't realize I had been knocked out cold in the stadium in Philadelphia, right? But anyway, what was the question? So,
how many impacts?
Yeah, how do you say? So they actually, after that question, I said 3 or 4 knockouts, and they said, "Well, how about the color purple, seeing stars, having a split second of dizziness?" And they listed like 10 things. And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And they said, "Well, these are considered subconcussive hits." Now they call them, that was 8 or 10 years ago. Now they really call them repetitive head impacts, RHIs. And I said, I don't know, thousands? And I went back and I looked at, I thought it was incredulous for me to say 5,000 to 8,000. Well, they actually have done tests on helmets, put sensors on helmets. And I think you and I were reading the football G forces were like 40, up to 40 Gs, maybe,
right.
Something like that. I think it was higher in rodeo in some of your.
Yeah, they did a study in Houston, and they put earpieces in the bull rider and a bareback rider, and they did a study. And at one point, it hit 46 Gs, and he covered his ride. That's not hitting ground. That's not nothing. That's while he was on the horse. He hit a 46 G.
Just so back and forth, the
right.
motion. And how many? So real quick. So the sensors on the helmets showed 1,000 to 1,500 of those forceful hits over a season. I played 11 seasons in the NFL, 5 years in college and 4 years in high school. So you do the math. How many you it was amazing to me. I was talking to you a few months ago, and I said, well, you're doing it how many times? Every time that horse bucks, you're back and forth. How many times in one ride are you getting that? I think you called it a swishing effect.
Yeah, my doctor called it a swish. And what it is you think about it, every time I got on that horse, a horse on an average will buck 12 times in 8 seconds. So you come up 1, 2, 12 times in 8 seconds. And so you're up around 18,000 impacts in your 20-year career, or repeated head impacts.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and
and by thinking back and looking and talking to doctors and everything, I'm guessing I'm around 10,000.
Right, probably a little more.
Probably a little more. I mean, with everything with football and everything else I did.
Didn't you box in high school too?
Yeah, I boxed and also did a little bit of karate.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, and how many times when you got the swishing, but throwing off a horse, did you hit your head once in a while?
I've done it a few times. I got a broken neck from one of them.
Okay.
But no, I've been knocked out pretty hard. I'd say I probably 4 or 5 times maybe completely knocked out.
Right.
Now, the purples and the stars and the dizziness, I don't even want to. Like I said, that's repeated head impacts that they talk about. And I'd say in my life, at least 10,000 roughly.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Welcome to the HeadRush Podcast, brought to you by the Patrick Risha CTE Awareness Foundation. Karen Siegel, thank you so much. Paul?
So go to stopcte.org, learn about their foundation, and they are sponsoring us for the next year. We are thrilled to have them team up with them and bring awareness to this disease.
So please go to their Facebook page. Go to their website, check them out. Karen is very, very, very willing to work with you. Contact her, and if you do know her, thank her for us, or just go on their Facebook page and say thank you for sponsoring the HeadRush Podcast.
You were telling me a story, and it blew my mind. You were telling me a story that you got drug under a horse one time, and were you awake the whole time, or did you say you woke up later, or what? Tell us that story.
You're talking about in Southern California. I was at a rodeo and I got on a horse and I ended up getting tipped off my offside.
Okay.
And this is the story that I've been told. Is that I actually went underneath the horse with my rigging still in my hand. And the horse is going, they literally had it empty. Timies came out, bulldoggers came out, cowboys came out and mugged the horse to get me out of my rigging. And I woke up in a helicopter on the way to a hospital in San Diego.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I mean, but that's a major event. That doesn't happen all the time in rodeo.
Right.
So I'm wondering, I'm going to ask you straight up, and I know you want to know from a professional footballer, what's the hardest hit someone's ever hit you? Now, since we're getting off the repeated head and we're kind of having fun a little bit, who would have hit you the hardest out of all your playing career?
Well, in college, there was a guy named by the name of Ironhead Hayward, and I think he was about 285 pounds as a running back, and I might have been 245 pounds as a defensive lineman. He almost killed me. And then I had he hit very hard. I had one hit on a great running back. This might give away the professional league I played in, but there was a guy by the name of Eric Dickerson, and I had a slant in the A gap. He was getting the ball just about the time I hit him, and he hunched down. He saw me, and he gave it. He just put everything behind his body, his strength. He was a very, very strong running back. And I hit him as hard as I could. We glanced off to the side. He did not fall backwards. My helmet was twisted. My chin strap was across my nose, and I was seeing stars. And I don't think I went completely out, but I was dazed and confused in the huddle going back but he fell down. So that was like a 2-yard loss. That was pretty cool. But yeah, the things that we do for fun.
Well, we're gladiators, I like to tell people. We're competitive. The one thing I do want to get out is I rodeoed professionally. And I will tell you right now, I'm 100% supportive of rodeo. I will never say anything bad about rodeo. I will never put down rodeo. Rodeo has given me so much in my life. So many of my friends, so many memories, so much enjoyment that it's tremendous. I mean, there's people out there that's going to talk and say, well, animal abuse and all of this. I'm not even going to get into that discussion because that's not on topic. But the camaraderie, the friendships, we're competing against an animal. We're not competing against each other. And, it's a rough man sport. It's a rough game, just like football. And, I think there's education is where we need to go with this, is to educate people on what to look out for, where there's hope, where there's awareness, what to pay attention to. I don't want to see football go away. I will say publicly, I'm not a big football fan anymore. Used to be a huge Niner fan, until someone came out and kneeled on the field and brought politics into the sport, and then I walked away. But that taken away, I will say America is the greatest American sport ever.
Rodeo?
Rodeo is the greatest American sport. We pray. We still stand and say the anthem. We take off our hats as gentlemen.
One of the things that I've realized, we lived in Texas for 5 years down here in Coppell, Texas, actually, and then I went to my first rodeo over in Fort Worth. And
going on right now.
Yeah. What's that? Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. And this was a bunch of years ago. And I was amazed. What a family oriented. I mean, everybody, the whole family was in the stands, and it was, and I didn't realize, oh gosh, the 4th of July, I mean, I've only watched fireworks and gone to 4th of July parties, but I guess rodeo, it's one of the biggest days of the year or the weeks of the year for rodeo, right?
Oh, it's Cowboy Christmas to us.
Cowboy Christmas.
Everyone celebrates except for the Cowboys. We travel.
Okay.
I mean, you're hitting as many rodeos as possible every day, if not 2 a day at times.
Yeah.
During that time, that's your big run to make as much money as possible, because everybody's celebrating the 4th of July and around then, so they're going to the rodeos, they're going to the state fairs, they're doing all of this. Well, we're sitting in a minivan, getting bearded up and going up as fast as we can down the road. Yeah. But, getting back to all of this, I have gone through the ringer medically. I have actually gone to the Glenn Briggs Institute for Alzheimer's and neurodegenerative diseases. And I saw Dr. Jeremy Tanner down at UT Health in San Antonio. And I got the diagnosis of traumatic encephalopathy syndrome, probable CTE.
And I'm not sure if we did mention this before, but we know, and we want you to know, you cannot definitively, science cannot definitively say you have CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, until an autopsy.
Until Ann McKee holds my brain in her hands, cuts me open.
And your brain is going to Boston University.
Yes, yeah. I've donated my brain to Boston University, and you donated yours too, right?
Yes, I did.
To Boston.
Yeah. But so you can't say we have CTE or it's suspected. But Corey, to your point, you have ruled everything out, and I want you to go through some of the 5 or 6 steps that you have done to rule everything out. And the closest you can get to a CTE diagnosis is TES, traumatic encephalopathy syndrome, which you have been diagnosed by one of the best doctors
in the nation. Right, Dr. Jeremy Tanner.
What was that journey? Yeah.
Well, the journey starts back in '99,
right?
And all the medical records from then. I've been to many of hospitals, many MRIs. I've had several neurological evaluations, and so all of that compiled. They also sent me in for an amyloid PET scan to test me for Alzheimer's, and I came up negative.
So negative means you have no amyloid, and that's what's associated with Alzheimer's. So they ruled Alzheimer's out.
Right.
Okay.
I am unspecified dementia.
Okay.
I have executive functions. I have rage. You go to the website of Boston University, or you go to the Mayo Clinic, or Google
right
CTE symptoms, and I probably knock most of them out.
I think
on a daily basis.
It's about 16 to 18. I know at one point I could check the box between 8 and 10. Do you think you could check
easy
12, 15 type of things at times, or?
Oh, at times, yeah. I mean, I get rage episodes, and when I get rage, I go to my bedroom. I go there. The wife knows not to come in, not to bug me, that I'm at that point of no return. And it's funny because I could be taking a shower, I could be sitting right here, and next thing you know, my chest the veins come up, and it's like, woohoo, I'm ready to fight. Bring it on. Yeah. And I fought growing up,
Is it a different rage, though, from growing up? I mean, obviously you were a rough and tough cowboy. It's a difference of me growing up in New Hampshire, not even knowing rodeo, right? It's just a different life being brought up. But
we're honest, we're forthcoming, and we stand up for what we believe in.
Yeah, but that rage, though, you're saying was different. Different.
It's 100% different. I mean, I'm talking about a little scuffle, in school or at a bar or something like that.
Yeah.
The rage I talk about now is I could literally just want to go beat the hell out of someone.
Yeah.
And not quit.
Right.
The suicidal thoughts and ideologies.
Did you have suicide ideation at 20 years old?
No, I didn't have I got in a car accident November 15th of 2022. So I looked at my wife, I'm sorry. November 15th, 2022. And I was in the phases of CTE, suspected CTE. I was in the phases, but I was coping. I was able to handle life. I was still able to drive. I was still able to multitask. I can't do that no more. And so when it comes to the suicidal, I didn't get that until after that accident. And it was a year after the accident, 6 months, a year, that I started getting them. And, I pray to God every day to keep them thoughts out of me. But on the anniversary of that accident, I'm going to be straight up honest, I turned off the location of my cell phone. And I'm not supposed to be driving, but I jumped in the car. I turned off the location of the car, and I drove back to the crash site. And I was walking around there and reliving all this. I even made a video on my phone of, wow, a year later, the fence is still laying up. There's still debris against this tree. I hit a tree at 65 miles an hour, head on. And I wanted to get in that car and just drive it into the tree again and see if it would finish me off. And I ended up, by the grace of God, I called my wife and went back to the house, and I grabbed my horse and took him out to the round pen, and I just sat on the ground while he was milling around out there rolling and stuff, and just...
You had animal therapy right there.
Right.
Yeah. So you've mentioned your wife a few times, and how important, tell the audience how important it is to have a caregiver who, caregivers in a situation like this, I don't know how they do it, because it's kind of like Jekyll and Hyde sometimes. But tell us how important it is to have a concerned caregiver.
Oh, my wife is my angel. She's my everything, and she knows it. And yeah, you want to talk about Jekyll and Hyde. I remember here not too long ago, you turned on the wipers and I went batty.
So it just triggered you.
Overstimulation.
Overstimulation.
It's like I can't go into grocery stores right now. I have a hard time at restaurants. I have overstimulation. My brain can't handle that stuff. And it's my wife, a touch, a feel, a discussion. It's like the other day, I went to get a bottle of water 5 times. Walk in, got sidetracked, went back, sat down and went, I forgot water. Walked in, got sidetracked, came back. On the 5th time, I finally got water. I'm pissed now. Because what kind of people does it take that you can't remember a dang bottle of water? And so my wife deals with this. My wife deals with my emotion changes. My wife can see the face. I think you say, what, my ears get red and my nose, and she can see it coming up. So she can breathe. She'll get my app for breathing to deep breathe and tell me, look at 5 different pictures while I'm breathing. And I'm learning that with the rage, I get out of a situation like what you were talking about with your daughter, just walking out of the house.
Right.
I call it my cave. It's my bedroom. I take off to the cave, but sometimes I can't because of the situation I'm in. We were at Buc-ee's going to Port Aransas. Worst.
Well, there's a lot of activity going on in a place like Buc-ee's.
And me and my wife both didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
We just walked in, and it was within seconds the overstimulation kicked in.
Yeah.
Made it to the bathroom. Thank God they got the walls up next to. It was just that I was able to turn around and wait until no one was near the sink. Went over to the sink, walked out. My wife was right there, and she's holding me, and I saw a door. We came in this way, but there's a door that way. And I go, we're going. And we went to go out, and someone just walked right in front of me And I blew
G-rated.
Right. And I just said, effing people. And my wife is like pushing me out the door. But once I got back to the car, I was able to do my breathing techniques. I knew I'm in a safe place. No one's going to. So
you're talking about the overstimulation. So I had a bout of that, more a claustrophobic bout. The last time I got an MRI 4 or 5 years ago up at Mass General, I flipped out. And I've since learned it probably was my dopamine. I do not assimilate dopamine. And we've got some great doctors and great guests that are going to be coming on soon to explain, medical doctors.
Our next episode.
Yeah. So it's going to be exciting to explain how much, if your body does not assimilate dopamine and you get too much dopamine built up, it actually, I thought, dopamine, you get as much as you can because it's going to make you happy. You eat chips to get a dopamine rush, and you eat your carbs and you feel good. No, it actually makes you anxious and worried and kind of. So in my instance, that I had about a 2 or 3 week bout with something like that. In Quiet Explosions, a movie that we're going to talk a lot about. I remember Dr. Corden saying, one head impact, it doesn't have to be repetitive head impacts, but one head impact, one concussion can actually change a person's personality within 1 year, totally change them. So that's an invisible malady that your loved ones or people that know you, they don't know. Some of them don't even know you had a concussion a year ago, and you're acting like a fool. You've got anger, you've got this, or you're acting irrationally. Maybe you never acted like that before, but you got to understand. We have to share that one concussion or repetitive head impacts can actually change your demeanor, can actually change your disposition. You can become Jekyll and Hyde. There's many neurologists that are starting to catch on and say, have you ever had a concussion or a head impact or a head trauma or a brain injury? And they're starting to more and more are starting to integrate that into their questioning and their practice.
Well, I got atrophy on the frontal lobe cortex.
Can't see that.
No,
I can't look at you and see if strong guy, and right. I would say you're good, a handsome guy, but you'd probably you'd let it go to your head. And I got spots on my brain that have gotten bigger and wider. And you found this out by taking your scans and tests over 10 years, 5 years, or 2 years? I got scans from the last 2019, 2023, and then I just had 2024. And since 2019 to 2024, and even 2023 to 2024, they have seen the atrophy. They have seen the spots getting bigger. So we're just talking 5 years that I've really moved ahead. Progressed.
I saw a neurologist here in Dallas in 2019, and I did a neurological exam. And I saw a neurologist, and he didn't tell me. And on the neurological exam, on the results, it said suspected CTE.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But the neurologist didn't tell me that.
Huh.
And so that was my very first medical document that said suspected CTE. All before that, it was cognitive nerve damage due to repeated hits and concussions. In 2014 was the first time we got answers. I was driving from Medford, Oregon, down to the Bay Area, and I can't remember leaving Siskiyou Summit all the way down to Pollard Flats, and I don't know how I got there. I don't know. Driving an 18-wheeler, 80,000 pounds.
Is that 30 miles, 50 miles?
About an hour and a half.
So 60, 70
Yeah.
miles. So it was kind of like a
In
blackout?
mountains, yeah. And I've had multiple blackouts like that to where I was at another place and I couldn't remember how I got there or how to go. And so they're little blackouts. And this wreck, I was knocked unconscious and amnesiaed for 3 days. Up walking and talking, but I don't remember none of it. And so, I mean, I've been married for 25, almost 26 years now. March 17th, I remembered. And without her, I guarantee I'd be dead by now. I promise you. Without her and her support, I would have never chased this rabbit hole and got the medical attention and done the research I have and talked with you if it wasn't for my wife and my daughter.
So let's talk about that, because you have chided me because I have not gotten all of those tests.
Why haven't you?
So I've got, you're
I'm going to tell you something, Paul. You're Mr. Professional Football. I've had all the studies done for the football league and all of this.
My neurological tests, yeah.
But you know what? I've went through, done all the medical to get the proof, to get it documented, to get it all. To where if Boston University, UCSF, I'm with both of them. UT, Health, I'm with them. If one of these Alzheimer's neurodegenerative CTE centers say, I got this drug I want you to try.
Right.
Guess what? Bye-bye.
I go first?
No. I'm going to Boston, you're going home.
Yeah. So my mentality was, I don't know if I have CTE. I'm not going to say I do. I can't say I do, but the likelihood is good playing, 20 years of competitive football.
It's not going to get you the...
No, it's not. No, only having the definitive, all of the scans that you've talked about, that you've done, going to some of these top doctors in the nation and ruling out things until the point where you can say TES, probable.
Yes, probable.
CTE. Yeah. So you got me to start calling my neurologist. I still haven't reached him yet, but hopefully.
You want me to pick up my phone? I'll call Mike in Boston, and I'm sure he can see you next week.
We'll get the ball rolling. Oh gosh.
It's pretty bad, folks, when a rodeo cowboy, ex-rodeo cowboy in Fort Worth, I got direct numbers to Mike Alonso, Jeremy Tanner. I got connections. I got a friend of mine in the rodeo industry that will come on and talk to us about diet.
Yeah.
And he's got issues, and he's working with an organization to get help. But there's hope. CTE, the other day, and I'm going to say this once, and I'm sorry for my language, it pissed me off. I was talking to a guy, and he said, CTE is a death sentence. No, it's not. Am I dead?
Right.
I don't have CTE. I'm probable. I don't have it. But it's not a death sentence. If you go out, treat the symptoms, like you would with cancer or any other disease. If you go out, I'm on meds, I do vestibular rehab, I do speech therapy, I talk to a therapist every week that helps me get my head realigned. And Crystal, you're a godsend. I was down in the dumps and I was in I can't do this anymore. Why can't I do this anymore? Pissed off because I can't do this. She looked at me and she says, I'm going to put it in your terms. Cowboy up. There went the light switch, and it just made me remember I'm still living.
Yes, we are. You are.
So I go and I seek the help I can.
Yeah.
I'm going to the avenues. I'm on the Mark Gordon protocol through Dr. DeMeo, who's flying in. And Dr. Mark Gordon's going to be coming on. It's very important to let people know that there's hope. That's what this whole podcast is about, is hope.
So when you're talking about Mark Gordon, the Mark Gordon protocol, I first was introduced to Mark Gordon through Quiet Explosions, a dear friend of mine from Texas. They were dealing with, their daughter was dealing with some severe brain trauma, and they heard about, they were working with the Dr. Amen clinics out in California, and they heard and saw a movie called Quiet Explosions with Dr. Gordon, Dr. Amen, and a few other doctors, and it's featured a blast explosives Green Beret, badass. You stand in awe and you think about some of the things that they've been through, and 4 trips to Afghanistan, he ended up with PTSD severely. And he got in touch with Dr. Gordon, and it was Dr. Gordon.
Warrior Angels.
Warrior Angels, yes. Andrew and Adam Marr. Adam was a Apache helicopter pilot, and the other brother was a Green Beret. Andrew.
Hey, I got a brother that was a Ranger.
Really?
Yeah.
It's just
Oh, hats off, dude. Hats off.
I'm not worthy.
Not even close.
Right? Oh my God. The things that
And I'm so happy Mark Gordon has stepped aside and left for Allison and Dr. DeMeo. If you go to tbihelpnow.org, it has a list of all the professionals that are okay through the Gordon protocol.
Right.
But man, Mark Gordon has almost stepped aside just to deal with veterans.
Right, exactly.
And I mean, he's gone to the Pentagon. Australia.
He just signed.
He's getting ready to go for 210,000 soldiers.
Yeah, in Australia.
Right.
Yeah, it's amazing. So we probably have to bring this first episode to a close. But we always want to leave with a word of hope, a word of inspiration. I strongly suggest that you go and watch Quiet Explosions tonight. And I watched that. I've watched it a bunch of times, and I get hope every time I watch that movie. It's exciting to know that CTE, TBI, repetitive head impacts, whatever you want to call it, is not a death sentence, as you said, as your friend said, and you rebutted that appropriately. There are things we can do, and they're in neurology. Neuroscience has advanced exponentially over the past 10 years. Remember they used to say you'd kill, after a night of drinking out in the town, you'd kill 10,000 brain cells and you'd never get them back?
I'd be dead.
Well, you have 100 billion brain cells, so
Well, I guarantee you, I did enough drinking on the rodeo trail.
well, the hippocampus, in watching Quiet Explosions, I learned that we actually produce up to 700 new neurons every day, even at 59 years old. Maybe less, I don't know.
And you can go to Tubi
Yeah.
and watch it for free now. It has commercials or Prime Video. And I think it's
Amazon
like
Prime, it was like
$5 or something like that.
$4.99, yeah.
You can also, there's a movie out that Chris Nowinski did, Head Games.
Head games, yes.
Brett Favre just came out with Concussed the American Dream.
Yes. Yeah.
And so there's a lot of movies starting to come out about it. And, you can look at the scratches on his helmet.
Yeah.
You can look at everything. But there's hope out there, people. There is. I seek hope every day. I seek hope with my wife. I seek hope with my therapist. If it wasn't for me doing all of this, I probably would be dead or in jail right now. Promise you.
But you're doing it.
But I'm going out and I'm getting help.
Yeah.
And that's what this whole podcast for me is about, is to bring hope and awareness to people with suspected CTE, with repetitive head impacts, with concussions, with TBIs, with mental illness. I have a nephew that has autism. There's Alzheimer's, got a friend of ours that has Alzheimer's. No matter what, there's hope. As long as there's a breath in your body, if I got a piece of blood going through my vein, there's hope. Until I'm no longer breathing and I'm dead, and Ann McKee and Michael Osco are looking at my brain going, well, I wonder what stage he's in, there's hope.
Well, your caregiver, your main caregiver, actually gave me a quote by Dostoevsky. And he says, to live without hope is to cease to live. And that's what we want to do. We want to bring hope. So what do you say in closing? What, you
stay alert, stay alive.
Stay alert and stay alive.
That's been my saying my whole life, is stay alert, stay alive.
Yep.
And, but us as athletes, I want to finish with this. I am not downplaying any sport.
Right.
I am not saying don't compete. There's only one way to practice riding a bucking horse. You can get on a dummy, you can do everything all you want, but until you're on, you're not going to learn. I'm not about rodeo. I will not mention an organization that I rodeoed with, and I'm not saying the A word, I'm saying organizations, and I'm not going to mention a single rodeo. I will talk about them, but I am not going to down a sport. And I think you feel the same way. We're not here to say, don't play football, don't rodeo, don't do this, it's hard on you. No, do it, because us as men, we're gladiators. And women that play sports are gladiators. They need that. They drive on it, that competitive edge. You need that drive.
There's definitely things, in attaining the lessons that we learn, from sports, the camaraderie, the laying it on the line for your brother or sister, giving it up for your team, putting your team before self. In the case of football, they're making the game safer, as safe as it can be. There's dangerous sports out there. There's dangerous jobs out there. Football's never going to go away. I personally have changed my, mom asked me now what's going on with, if little Johnny wants to play, well, flag football is good until 14, but make sure that the child is on the omega-3s. Be proactive and do things that can bring that inflammation down.
Definitely.
bring that inflammation down.
And coaches need, on every sport, rodeo, everything, need to pay attention to the competitors. Because I'll tell you what, and you call me a liar if I'm wrong, I've ridden a bucking horse with broken ribs. I've ridden a bucking horse with a separated shoulder. I've ridden hurt. If I got my bell rung, I still got on because I didn't want to get fined and I didn't want to have to take time off and do all of the stuff that you have to do. But tell me that you've never got your bell rung and didn't get off the field.
Oh, numerous times. That's
what I'm saying. That's where coaches need to start paying attention to the gladiators and to the competitive people playing the game and saying, hey, no, Johnny, you need to come sit down. You got your bell rung. You're out for the game.
Exactly. Yeah, we saw in professional football this year, we saw some really scary moments, that players were back in that probably shouldn't have been, and so on and so forth. But yeah, that's a whole other five episodes. So.
Right. But I just want to finish by saying we're not saying don't play sports. We're not saying don't be competitive. We're saying live that competitive life. Drive on that competitive life. Be who you're going to be. If you want to be a cowboy, be a cowboy. If you want to be a football player, be a football, give it 100%, but pay attention up here.
Thank you for joining us for the HeadRush podcast. Thank you for Stop CTE, the Patrick Risha CTE Awareness Foundation for sponsoring us. And stay
alert,
and stay
alive.
Thank
you, honey.
Until next time, thank you.
Bye.
This podcast is for general information only and does not constitute the practice of medicine. The use of this information and the materials linked to this podcast is at the user's own risk. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard and delay in obtaining medical advice from any medical condition they have, and they should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions.